Actually, my mom just collapsed. I have to accompany her, so we'll just have to call off the ceremony.
On the morning of our wedding day, my boyfriend Henry called to tell me that his mother had fallen ill. What kind of condition is mother in?
She suddenly collapsed and she's unconscious. Harper, can you please contact the venue to cancel?
I'm on my way, so let me know which hospital.
Well then, the ambulance is on its way.
Henry hung up on me before he could tell me about the hospital to which his mother was being transported. I sent a message asking him to let me know, but he has not responded. It was so sudden that I didn't know where to start, and I thought about many things. Should I contact the venue first and cancel? But if his mother's life is in danger, I have to head there immediately. As I froze, clutching my phone, it rang again. I heard the person on the other end of the line and got confused. Judy? My name is Harper, and I'm a 28-year-old office worker. I have a boyfriend that I have been dating since high school. His name was Henry, a bright and gentle guy who I felt at home with and had always dreamed of marrying. We have been together for almost 10 years now. For about a year, I had been talking to Henry about getting married on our 10-year anniversary. And yet, Henry kept saying,
"Yes, I'll think about it."
And all I get is a lukewarm reply. He has not been very forthcoming with me about getting married. We originally planned to live together after college, but
if I live with you, I'm afraid I'm going to get spoiled and sloppy. So can you wait a bit until I'm on my own first?
I was told that and got refused to live with him. At the time, I was convinced by Henry's argument, but looking back, it is an excuse that I don't really understand. It is indeed unsettling that we have been together for almost 10 years and he's still unsure about marriage. Once we decided to have a serious discussion, I called Henry to my house for the holidays. I've been saying for a while now that I want to get married.
Uh-huh. Of course I'm thinking about it too.
Can you just say it aloud and not just think?
Well,
That is, if you don't intend to get married, break it off. If you intend to get married, decide here and now. He gave a small nod when I said this much and proposed. To be honest, I had dreamed of a romantic proposal, but since it's Henry, who is a bit of a wimp, I gave up on the idea. We finally decided to get married, and things progressed a lot from there. First, we went to his parents to report our marriage. I am quite close with them, having known them since high school. My parents moved overseas after I graduated from high school, so my in-laws felt responsible for taking care of me. My in-laws were happy that I finally came to report our marriage. I called my parents to inform them too. From then on, everything went smoothly, from the meeting dinner with both families to the purchase of the rings and the search for the wedding venue. My mother-in-law worked in the bridal industry, so with her advice, we were able to quickly decide on the wedding venue. We also planned to invite our relatives and a few friends and co-workers to the reception. I was very happy, but Henry seems to dwell on it more and more. We had been talking about marriage for some time, but I thought he was anxious because I had suddenly suggested it. Henry, are you okay?
What?
You keep looking down and thinking about something. Anxious to get married?
Oh, it's not like that. Just a little.
What's wrong? If you have a problem, I'm here to listen.
No, it's about work. It's okay.
No matter how many times I asked, Henry would not tell me what was bothering him. I had heard that men can have marriage blues too, so I thought he might have had that. To reduce Henry's workload as much as possible, I took over the wedding preparation so that he would have more time for himself. Finally, it's the morning of the wedding day. Henry was scheduled to bring his parents to the ceremony. As I was getting ready to leave, my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw that it was an incoming call from Henry. What's wrong?
Still home, right?
Yes, I was just getting ready to leave.
Actually, my mom just collapsed suddenly.
What? Your mother? Is she okay?
I'm waiting for an ambulance right now. I have to chaperone, so we'll just have to call off the ceremony.
What kind of condition is mother in?
She suddenly collapsed and she's unconscious. I'm sorry, Harper, but could you please call the venue to cancel?
I'm on my way, so let me know which hospital.
Well then, the ambulance is coming now.
Henry hung up on me before he could tell me about the hospital to which his mother was being transported. I sent an email to him asking him to let me know about the hospital, but he has not responded. It was so sudden that I didn't know where to start, and I thought about many things. If the wedding is getting cancelled, should I contact the venue first? But if his mother's life is in danger, I have to head there immediately. As I froze clutching my phone, it rang again. It was so startled that I almost dropped my phone, caught it, and rushed to answer the call. Good morning, Harper. Did you sleep well last night? It's time to head to the ceremony, and I'll help you change your dress. I heard his mother's voice, which was the same as usual, which made me confused. Judy? Yeah, it's me. Oh, are you still sleepy? I was in a rush to answer the phone and hadn't looked at the screen, but when I did, I saw that the call was from Henry's mother. When Henry said his mother fell down and had to be transported, what was that about? As I was thinking about it for a moment, when I heard Henry's voice in the background.
Oh, Mom, so you are here. You know about the ceremony. Are you on the phone with someone right now?
I'm on the phone with Harper.
What? On the phone with Harper? Wait, Mom, give me the phone.
With that, Henry seems to forcefully take the phone from his mother.
Oh, Harper? Oh no, it's about my mother.
What the hell is going on? Are you saying that your mother having collapsed was a lie?
No, I wasn't lying. I was surprised too, but she recovered quickly. There was nothing weird. She's totally fine. So, did you cancel the ceremony?
I had no idea what the lie was for or why, but all I could tell was that he didn't want to have a wedding. You didn't have to lie like that if you didn't want to have a wedding with me.
That's not what I meant. It's not...
Can you give the phone to your mother? By the looks of it, you're lying to your parents too.
No, I will explain that properly.
Of course I will let you explain. We don't have time for this, so give it quickly. He reluctantly gave the phone to her, as if it's been decided that he couldn't get away with it. For Henry to tell me that his mother had collapsed and that they were going to the hospital, and to be asked by him to cancel the ceremony because we had no choice. I explained all these things to her. When she heard my story, is it true that you lied about me falling ill and tried to cancel the ceremony? She confronted Henry. I couldn't tell over the phone, but I'm sure Henry was nodding silently. After a short pause, I heard a loud sigh from his mother. I'm sorry. We'll do what you want us to do. What do you want to do, Harper? Right. I will cancel the ceremony because we are no longer in a condition to do so. Well, I'm really sorry. I then discussed it with her and contacted the invited guests and the ceremony venue to inform them of the cancellation. It was painful to tell my parents, who came all the way from overseas. Since they still don't know the truth, I just explained to my parents that we had a miscommunication. After getting a word out, I headed to Henry's parents' house in the late afternoon. When I arrived at their house, Henry was being reprimanded by his father. Before our discussion, his parents got down on their knees and apologized to me.
We had no idea our son was such an idiot. We are truly sorry.
I asked them to raise their heads. Henry kept looking down and made no attempt to apologize, even though his parents did so because of him. You don't apologize?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why did you lie about your mother falling ill?
It is...
Keeping quiet won't solve anything though.
I could be making $30 million a year.
Not only I, but his parents were also stunned by what he said. I don't understand this at all.
She's going to make me an employee, and for that reason, we had to cancel the ceremony.
Wait! Explain everything from the beginning. That said, Henry began to explain what he meant bit by bit. About a year after he started working, he met the daughter of the president of a major company, who was an acquaintance of his friend. The president's daughter liked Henry and said, "If you go out with me, I will put you in my father's company. His employee's annual income is $30 million. This was a great opportunity for Henry, who was not doing well at his job and was considering a career change. He said that he had been dating the president's daughter while dating me without thinking too much about it. This means that they have been having an affair for about 5 years. I checked Henry's phone on the spot when I heard about the affair. Then I found many photos of his dates with a beautiful woman. They were pictures of beautiful scenic hotels and beaches, and they seemed to have fun.
I went out with her like she told me to, but she wouldn't let me into their company for a while. You were pressuring me to get married, and I didn't know what to do.
You should have left me and go to the boss's daughter, right?
I don't want to. She's selfish and egotistical. If I were to marry, I would prefer you. So the plan was to leave as soon as they let me into the company and marry you.
I don't understand. The wedding was cancelled, but you already submitted the marriage certificate.
About that, I haven't actually submitted it.
What's that? What do you mean? Since we were on a tight schedule from the time we decided to get married until the ceremony, Henry took care of the marriage license, and I was making preparations. Henry told me that he had submitted the marriage certificate without having really sent it in. I can't believe he lied to me all those years ago, and even lied about getting married. I could only sigh in dismay.
Because I could have made $30 million a year. With that much, you could be a stay-at-home mom, and the money would be nice to have too.
I don't want to be a housewife, and there is no way he could get $30 million in the first place. I'm sure that the president's daughter is playing with Henry, who doesn't know things just for fun. I'd rather have a man who doesn't cheat on me than a man who makes a lot of money. Henry's eyes widened when I said this. Then his face turned grim.
That's enough. I've been working hard for you.
Huh? For me? What do you mean by working hard? You just enjoyed cheating.
Yes. You narrow-minded person wouldn't know what I'm going through. Because I'm going to tie the knot with her and make $30 million a year. You can't come back to me just because I have money.
I will never go back to a guy like you. I told him that and left their house. His parents kept their heads down until the very end. I don't really care about anything else anymore. But I was disappointed that I could no longer be a family with his wonderful parents. 10 days later, I received a phone call from Henry. I realized that I had forgotten to reject the call because I didn't want to think about him. However, curious as to what the call was about, I picked up the phone. The caller, Henry, was whimpering and crying, and started talking about how he had been dumped by the president's daughter. Sure enough, he was being played with. The president's daughter has another man she is dating, and she wanted to tease Henry, who who had been his girlfriend's sole focus since high school. So she lied about making him an employee who earned $30 million a year and teased him for having the affair. She said that she was satisfied that Henry and I had broken up, and she told him that everything was a lie and dumped him. The president's daughter who makes fun of people is disgusting, but I have no more love for him after he betrayed me by believing a lie that anyone could have figured out.
I'm really sorry. This time around, I realize that you're the only one for me. We've known each other for a long time, right? Let's start over again.
Last time, you said it was impossible even if I tried to come back to you.
That was just something I said because you were being hard on me.
I have absolutely no intention of getting back together with you, so don't call me again. I hung up and blocked calls from him. The wedding and the reception were cancelled on the day of the wedding, so the cancellation fee was 100%. Since Henry was the cause of the cancellation, his parents paid the cancellation fee instead. Angered by what Henry had done, they kicked him out of their house, treating the cancellation fee as a goodbye gift. Henry left his workplace at the same time we broke up. I heard him say boldly that a seat had been prepared for him as the next president of the major company he would be joining. As a result, he could not even join the company, let alone take that seat. But I'm glad he left the company. It was explained that the reason the ceremony was cancelled was because of Henry's infidelity. He will have no credibility at all in the company, because he has been caught cheating for 5 years on his girlfriend of almost 10 years. He would have eventually resigned, even if he had stayed with the company. It just would have been sooner. He had also bought a new suit, watch, and shoes, saying he wanted to dress like a rich man. Those were purchased at the high-end store introduced to him by the president's daughter, and he had to incur considerable debt just to pay for them. That is not only thing. There is also compensation for me. We were able to prove the affair after the engagement, so I was able to claim alimony from Henry. It is not that expensive, but for Henry, who has lost his job and is in debt, it is far from what he can afford. He currently lives in an $800 per month apartment and has a part-time job. He is looking for a full-time job while paying off his debts. However, it doesn't seem to work at all, perhaps because he once dreamed of a $30 million annual income. I had no intention of fighting with the president's daughter for Henry. I was disgusted with his affair partner, but I thought it would be a long process if I had to demand alimony from her as well. The lawyer I consulted also told me it would be difficult, so I gave up. But the woman was also punished. Her father found out that she had been tricking Henry by lying to him about giving him a job at her father's company. She had been receiving a monthly allowance of hundreds of thousands of dollars from her father, but that allowance is now gone. The money she had and her credit cards were all confiscated. She has now been evicted from her home and is being forced to work in a subsidiary company, which is a factory. Although it is a subsidiary, the plant manager is an old friend of the president and has known her since she was a baby. The factory manager knows what is going on, and he says he is going to set her straight, and he is being very strict with her. I heard about this from Henry's parents. It seems that the father, the president of the company, came to their house himself to apologize for the damage Henry had suffered because of his daughter's lies. At that time, Henry's parents explained to him about me and informed me that the president wanted to apologize to me as well. I heard that the woman had been properly punished, so I politely declined an apology from the president, saying that was enough. Nevertheless, the president apologized and gave me $100,000, hoping that I would accept it as a consolation payment. The atmosphere was such that he was not likely to leave until I received the money, and since I had joined his company under other circumstances, I gratefully accepted. I was thinking of changing jobs and moving at this time, so it was honestly helpful to have a sum of money available. Moving out can be a change of scenery, but another reason is also because the guy whom I've been dating for 10 years cheated on me and called off the wedding. So word spread within my former company and among acquaintances. No one was being mean, but it was a bit stressful because I often had to be careful around people. I found a new job at the new location, and I'm living a fulfilling life. I was quite shocked that Henry had betrayed me, and I had no desire to have a boyfriend at all for a while. Recently, however, I became interested in someone in the company. I thought that I could no longer trust people, but I have someone who cares about me, so I felt that I could finally move on. I'm also trying to be a little more positive about my love life.
My mother-in-law and my husband built a house on my land. When it was completed, they tried to kick me out, but
I'm done with you now that the house is finished. I want you to divorce my son. I'm going to move in with Mom, so you can get out of here.
The moment they finished the new house, they treated me like this. I knew they were trying to take advantage of me. With a big smile on my face, I said to them, "With pleasure." A few days later, my mother-in-law and my husband came to my office, pale-faced.
What in the world is going on?
My name is Lucy. I'm a 34-year-old office worker. I currently live at home with my mother. My father died of illness a few years ago. Since then, I have been taking care of my mother. My mother has always been frail, and she has been living under the care of a caregiver since her back and legs deteriorated about 7 years ago. I have to work during the daytime on weekdays, so I have a caregiver helping her during those times. I take care of my mother during the rest of the time. It is not easy for me to balance work and caring for my mother, but it is not hard when I think about my mother's sake. I have received a lot of love from my parents. I am grateful that they sent me to college, and I have many memories with my family since they took me to many places when I was a child. I wanted to repay my parents for their kindness. That's why after my mother's back and legs got worse, I returned to my hometown to live with them. Lucy, thank you for everything, and I'm sorry for all the restrictions I put on you. What are you talking about? There are no restrictions. But you have been taking care of me for a while now, and it's not easy to meet anybody good under those conditions, isn't it? You don't have to worry about that. I'm not in a hurry. I was fooling myself by saying that. When I lived like this, I certainly didn't have nearly as many opportunities to meet people. People at work are either married or nearly 10 years older than me. None of them were available for a romantic relationship, so I wasn't blessed with any good encounters. In the midst of all this, a friend of mine took the liberty of setting up a group blind date. I thought I would not find a partner, even if I attended, but since my friend had organized it, I thought it would be rude not to go. So I decided to go to the party. And so, in the end, there were 3 men and 3 women, including myself, who attended the date. At first, everyone was talking friendly as a group. Then, as time went by, we changed seats and began to talk to those next to each other. At that time, James came up next to me and talked to me. James and I were the same age, so we had a lot in common, and I remember I had fun talking to him. I would love to fall in love with him if I could. I wish I could go on a date with him. I thought things like that while talking. However, I accidentally told him about myself. I told him that I was taking care of my mother at home. Most men would probably not be interested, or would hesitate to go out with me at that point. Moreover, I think most men would feel that marriage would be too difficult. In fact, even when my father was still alive, I had experienced rejection when they found out that my mother was under care. So I was sure that he would naturally move away from me as soon as he heard the truth. But his response was different.
I see. I know it's a lot of work. I think it's great that you are taking care of your mother.
What?
You are taking care of her all by yourself, aren't you? That's a lot of work, and I respect it.
Well, I guess. I had never been praised like that before. So I was both happy and a little embarrassed. However, he was serious in complimenting me. There was no lie in his eyes.
You know, I come from a single-parent home, so I know how hard it is to be without a father.
I see. So James, has your father already passed?
Yeah, well, in my case, my dad had an affair, and that's why my parents divorced.
Oh, I see.
Haha, you must be surprised.
Oh no.
It's okay, I don't mind. I was happy living with my mother, so it's no problem.
I see. We talked about deep things that brought us closer together. We exchanged numbers and started going on dates since then. Then, he confessed to me, and we officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. I told him, if you're considering marriage, I have my mother's care to do, so please keep that in mind before dating me. To that, he said,
Of course, I've thought about it. I've decided after thinking about all that.
I thought he was very trustworthy, and we started dating. As we continued our relationship, he was concerned about my mother, and sometimes even offered to have dinner with me at my parents' house. He was very considerate of my situation and my mother's needs, even though we were not yet married. I became more and more attracted to him. My mother also liked him, saying he was a kind and good person. James, I just wanted to say thank you for keeping Lucy company. This girl was so busy taking care of me that she didn't have time to fall in love.
No, I'm the one who is grateful for Lucy dating me.
I was happy to see him and my mother smiling and talking happily with each other. And so, we continued dating, and after a year, we decided to get married. I never thought I could get married, but with him accepting my mother, I thought we would definitely have a happy marriage. My mother was so happy when we had our wedding. My coworkers and my friends also congratulated me on my marriage. I thought I was going to live with him, but to my surprise, he offered to live with my mother. Are you sure about this?
Of course I am. I've been thinking about it ever since we decided to get married.
Thank you, James. I was genuinely happy. I had originally hoped that when I got married, I would be able to live near my parents' house to take care of my mother. I thought I would have to move back and forth between our place and my mother's place. But then, my husband suddenly suggested this. When I told my mother about this, she burst into tears of joy. I'm so glad you met someone truly wonderful. This is how our life together began. I was content to enjoy the feeling of being a newlywed with my husband, while also taking care of my mother. My husband actively helped out with things like the heavy lifting and wheelchair pushing when I needed a man's help. We were living a peaceful life together as a family. But about 2 years later, my mother's health suddenly got worse. She had been able to live with us at home as long as I took care of her, but now she needed to be hospitalized. However, since my mother was already close to 70 years old, I was a little prepared for this. I went to visit her every day. My husband also came to visit her when he finished work early. Lucy, thank you for everything you have done for me. James, please take care of Lucy. Mom, don't say things like that. Don't talk to me like it's your last words.
Yes, we need you to live longer.
Thank you. You are so kind. I had a bad feeling about this. The way my mother talked to me sounded like she was prepared too. I then explained the situation to the company. I told them that if something should happen to her, I would like to take a paid leave. I didn't want that to happen at all if possible. But my bad premonition came true. A week later, my mother's condition worsened and passed away. I was very depressed by my mother's death. My husband comforted me and calmly made arrangements and preparations for the funeral. Thanks to him, I was able to send my mother off safely. After the funeral, I was still very sad, and I felt like I had a gaping hole in my heart.
Lucy, let's live happily for your mother. Take your time and get your strength back.
Thank you. My husband was so kind and cuddled me. I healed my emotion wounds little by little over time and regained my strength. I truly believe that I had met a kind man, but that was my big mistake. I began to feel uncomfortable with my husband. It was about 3 months after my mother passed away. When I started to regain some of my energy, my husband began to invite my mother-in-law to our house often. Lucy, I hope you are feeling better. I know it must be hard for you, but you have to look to the future. Thank you for your words. My mother-in-law used to say kind words to me, but I was a little troubled by her frequent visit.
Mom, you should eat dinner with us again tonight.
Sounds like a good idea. I will do that then. My mother-in-law, as a matter of course, would have dinner with us. She often stayed over too. It was fine if it was only once in a while, but she would come 2 or 3 times a week. It was almost as if we lived together. Moreover, my mother-in-law did not pay for any of the food and other expenses incurred during these visits. My husband may have told her she didn't have to pay for it, but then I had to pay for it from our family budget. It basically meant that I was the one who was paying for it. And in the midst of all this, my husband started saying something like this.
Why don't we invite my mother to come and live with us?
What? With your mother?
Yeah, because it's a little big for just the 2 of us. You're the one who inherited it, so we can't give this place away either. I was born when my mother was young, so she's only 65. But still, anything can happen at any time. I'm just worried about her, you know. Mom said she would take care of the housework. I think if we work, and she does the housework, we can all live a happy and comfortable life.
At that time, I was convinced by my husband's words, and so I agreed to live with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law did not bully me or anything like that. She did the housework well and was very helpful. It was nice to come home from work and find the food ready to eat. My mother-in-law was kind to me while I lived with her, and I enjoyed talking as the 3 of us over dinner. I had come to trust my mother-in-law completely. In the midst of all this, my mother-in-law and my husband suggested something surprising.
This house is getting old, so why don't we build a new house?
What?
We will live in this house for a long time, right? We may even have children. Then I think it would be better to live in a new and clean house.
I think that's a good idea. I think it is your parents' wish that you are happy and comfortable. When my mother-in-law and husband said that to me, I felt the same way. My mother and father always wished me to be happy. As my husband and mother-in-law said, rebuilding the house and living in a new one might lead to my happiness, so I took them up on their offer. Then, my husband and I searched for a real estate agent, and we discussed the layout of the room and the other details. My mother-in-law also joined us and offered her opinion. And then we actually started construction. Until the house was completed, the three of us lived in a rented apartment as a temporary residence. The days passed by so quickly. We were excitedly waiting for the day the house was to be completed in about a month. But then, I overheard an unexpected conversation between my mother-in-law and my husband. It all started when I was frequently working overtime. When I went home one day after working overtime, I heard something that I couldn't believe.
Well, it looks like the plan is going to work out sooner than I thought.
Yeah, I wonder what she's going to look like when we get rid of that stupid wife. I can't wait to get your lovely girlfriend over here and have the three of us living together. I really couldn't believe my ears. My husband and mother-in-law were talking as if they were having a relationship with a woman other than me. I opened and closed the front door one more time so that they would not know that I had heard their conversation. Then, they finally noticed that I had returned. The atmosphere of the conversation they had just had between them was gone. They were back to their usual friendly manner with me. I was growing distrustful of them. But still, the rebuilding of the house had already begun, and I could not stop it. And after a while, the house was completed. We quickly moved from our temporary place to our new house. The new house was very clean and beautiful from the outside. We also saw the interior of the house. It was a beautiful, new, and very nice house. My husband and mother-in-law were very impressed and excited. Then, they turned to me and suddenly started to grin and laugh. I'm done with you now that the house is finished. I want you to divorce my son. What? That's what my mother-in-law said to me out of the blue. And my husband agreed with her.
I'm going to move in with Mom, so you can get out of here.
He said this as he pulled out the already filled out divorce papers. The moment they finished the new house, they treated me like this. I knew they were trying to take advantage of me. With a big smile on my face, I said to them, "With pleasure." I immediately took the divorce papers. My mother-in-law and husband were surprised that I had backed down so quietly. They seemed to think that I had given up.
I'm glad you were fooled so easily. I've been waiting for this moment since the first time I talked to you at the blind group date. You were already living alone with your mother, who already needed care at the time. I had a flash of inspiration that it would be perfect if Mom and I moved into the house you inherit and rebuild it. I'm a genius, right?
I was utterly dumbfounded. They had been planning this for years. I was stunned to the point of amazement. My mother-in-law praised her son. He really is the best son anyone could have. Now I can live comfortably in my old age. They grinned at each other. But my husband and mother-in-law don't know yet. I had already made the first move. I took my luggage and left the place as it was. Then, I went to a place. It is a room in an apartment. I had already rented a room in an apartment for myself, so I was going to move there from the beginning. I was sure my husband and mother-in-law will be surprised at what is going to happen to them. I thought about them and couldn't help but laugh a little. A few days later, my mother-in-law and my husband came to my office, pale-faced. I thought they might call me or something, but no. They stormed into my office out of the blue. I was surprised as this was unexpected. What on earth is going on?
Why do we have to be evicted from that house?
My husband and mother-in-law shouted at me like that. But I calmly replied, "The house and the land belong to me, so it's up to me to sell them, isn't it?" When I said that, the two of them were immensely upset. No, that's not possible.
Didn't we buy that house under your joint ownership?
You didn't listen to anything I said. We decided to buy it in my name because you aren't too little. That's why the house and the land are mine.
Oh no!
Finally, they seemed to understand the situation.
Lucy, we are so sorry. It's our fault. So please, we can live together again, right? Yeah. We are a married couple, and you don't have any relatives anymore. Let's live happily again as a family, with my mother and me.
What are you talking about? Don't you remember when you confronted me with the divorce papers? I've already filed them. We are strangers now. And I have proof that you're having an affair too.
What?
I will be filing a claim for alimony through my lawyer.
Oh no! Wait, please!
I'm not waiting. This is my office. I want you to out of here. I called the security guard and asked him to send them away. Soon, my ex-husband and an ex-mother-in-law were taken outside by the security guard. I then filed a claim for alimony against my ex-husband and the affair partner through my lawyer. My ex-husband's salary is not much, but it seems like he is having a hard time because his debts are increasing. In addition, he could not get the house, so the affair partner told him that that's not what he told her, and he was dumped. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law are living together in a shabby apartment after that. I heard a rumor that they were kicked out of the house because they were bothering the neighbors with their daily fights. I don't know where they are now, and I'm not interested in them. I, on the other hand, live in a small rented apartment for singles, peacefully and comfortably. The house I rebuilt sold for quite a high price, and I was able to make a positive profit. I'm planning to keep the money and use it after my retirement. I'm going to put my love life on hold for a while, and going to devote myself to my work as much as I can. It's just fraudulent to think that they were planning to take over the house from the beginning. I think this ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law deserve harsher sanctions. But from Lucy's point of view, maybe it would be better to cut them off as soon as possible. At any rate, I'm glad she was able to make a profit when she sold the house. I hope a nice man will appear in front of Lucy in the future. Thank you for watching.
My mother-in-law goes on a trip with a young man, while she lets me take care of terminally ill father-in-law.
Why do I have to be the caregiver? I never want to take care of my husband toileting. Why do you think I allow you and my son to get married in the first place? It's for a time like this, isn't it? It's not like you're going to be taking care of him for years. 1 year at the most. He's going to die soon anyway, so just have patience. My mother-in-law hated taking care of my father-in-law, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer with little time left to live. The reason why she didn't want to do it was simple. It would mean less time for her to see the man she was having an affair with. As far as I know, my father-in-law is a very kind and gentle man. My mother-in-law must have spent many years with my father-in-law. So how could she do such a terrible things to such a kind person? My father-in-law saw me having such thoughts. One day, as I was taking care of him, he said to me with a smile,
Don't worry, I will take her to hell with me.
A few days later, my mother-in-law really had to go through hell. I'm an office worker and a housewife, just an ordinary person. My husband and I have been married for about 5 years, and although we are not blessed with children, we still have a good relationship. We live happily, and our married life is smooth sailing for the most part. Almost. There is one person who is putting a damper on our happy life. It's my mother-in-law. She will soon be in her 50s. I don't know what kind of magic she is using, but she looks like she is in her late 30s. Perhaps she has been pampered because of her appearance, but she has a worse personality. When we went to greet her before our wedding, she said as soon as she saw me, "Is someone like you my son's girlfriend?" She was so rude to me. Afterward, When we talked with my parents-in-law in the living room, my mother-in-law listened to my story about my past and denied everything about my life, saying that I had a boring life and that I was shabby. Indeed, I'm not particularly beautiful. I was born into an ordinary family, and I have lived a reasonably happy and ordinary life. It's not a dramatic life, but why should I be denied so much at our first meeting? My father-in-law, who was standing next to her, told her not to be rude, and my husband told her to stop it, but she wouldn't listen to them. So on the way home after the greeting, my husband apologized to me and said painfully,
I love you, but my mother has always been a person who can only deny things like that, and I don't think she will ever get over her bad habit. So if you're disgusted with this marriage, you can reject it.
My husband, who had nervously proposed to me, said this to me. It shows a great deal of determination, and that my mother-in-law is such a problematic person. But I want to marry my husband because I want to be with him. And if I rejected the marriage because of my future mother-in-law, it would mean that I was running away from her. I didn't want to feel like I was losing. What happened after that is obvious from the fact that I have been calling my husband since the beginning. After we got married, we lived far away from my parents-in-law's house and saw them only a few times a year, mainly just at Thanksgiving and Christmas. That alone is quite mentally exhausting for me. It's fine for me to help her with the house chores. However, she starts by complaining about how I help her, then continues to denigrate my personality. And finally, she starts bragging about how superior my mother-in-law herself was. I learned from this story that my mother-in-law and father-in-law are married through an arranged marriage. I also surmised from this that my father-in-law's family was quite rich, and my mother-in-law had married him for his money. She once said something like, "If he didn't have that much money, I wouldn't have married that old man." In addition, my husband and I had been asked to move in with her, but it was unthinkable for us to live with her, so my husband and I firmly refused. However, my mother-in-law has been calling me quite often lately, probably because she has grown tired of my attitude, and she even yells at me, asking me when in the world I'm going to move in with her. But I can see that if I live with her, I will be mistreated as a daughter-in-law and treated like a servant. In fact, she started saying something like, "The quality of house chores has been declining lately because of that old man. If this continues, my house will become a dump. I wish I had someone to take his place." To begin with, this mother-in-law is so bossy that she has her husband do all the house chores. When we meet at my parents-in-law's house, she talks about her philosophy of what a wife should be and denies me. When my husband and I stubbornly refused to live with her, she finally started threatening us. First, she called me on the phone. "Are you going to let me just die?" Then, she started spreading bad news about us to the neighbors. Finally, she sent an email to the company where I work saying, "Your employee is the worst kind of bitches who disrespect the lives of the elderly." Fortunately, the company handled it as just spam mail, but since I did not know what my mother-in-law would do in the future, I talked to my husband and agreed to move in with her. Once we started living together, I was in charge of all the household chores that my father-in-law had been doing. And as expected, my mother-in-law was very hard on me. "What's the matter with you? You're born into a boring family. You've lived a crappy life. You're born to be such a servant, and you can't even do a single household chore. No, I've never seen anyone with so little talent. How did you manage to marry my son? Maybe you're so good in bed. That's disgusting." If she's going that far, why doesn't she just do the housework until she is satisfied? I think so. but my mother-in-law is hardly ever home to begin with. After moving in together, I noticed that she wakes up later than my father-in-law, goes out before noon, and doesn't come home until late at night. At first, I thought she was probably at work, but it seems that is not the case. When I asked my father-in-law, he told me to let her do whatever she wants, and he helps me with my chores. My father-in-law and husband remained on my side even after we started living together. However, the more they took my side, the more my mother-in-law became offended. "You know, no one in this house is on my side. What's wrong with me, a rich woman, picking on this poor little girl? She's a childless, worthless woman who is only good at night in bed. She must have gotten some kind of disease from some man in the past. That's why she can't have children." Even though I endured everything, I was hurt when she said that to me. The doctor had told me that I was less likely to have children than most women. My husband was so upset by my mother-in-law's vicious words.
Don't be silly, you old bitch.
My husband yelled at her. "How dare you talk to me in that tone? Have you forgotten how much you owe me for giving birth to you? In fact, unlike this woman, I was able to have a child. That's why you are here." In response to my mother-in-law's arrogant words, my father-in-law said,
Stop! That's enough.
He intensified his tone. "I'm the one who had enough of you. If I hadn't married you, you would be living an old and miserable life by yourself. And I went out of my way to marry you even though I was so popular. Who do you think saved you from dying in solitude?" My mother-in-law would argue with each of us in such a precise and malicious manner. Thus, no matter how hard I tried, I could not escape from my mother-in-law's verbal abuse. One day, when I was wondering how long I could endure such a life, my father-in-law complained of poor health, and I accompanied him to the hospital. It turned out that he had terminal cancer. As it turned out, there was nothing more they could do. His life expectancy was 1 year at best. They say he even could die at any time. My father-in-law wanted to receive palliative care at home. He strongly wished to be at home rather than in a hospital, where he would die in solitude. We returned to my parents-in-law's house and held a family meeting. My father-in-law explained his condition, and I added to his explanation. My husband cries tears of grief. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, listens to the story with a terribly bored look on her face. She looks as if she is hoping the meeting will end soon. But right now, I'm not interested in what my mother-in-law is thinking. It is more important that my father-in-law spend as many days as possible, and that I cooperate with my mother-in-law to take care of him. But my mother-in-law's reaction when I told her that was unexpected. No, it was actually expected. "Why do I have to take care of him? I definitely don't want to take care of my husband's toileting. What do you think I approved you and my son's marriage for in the first place? It's for times like this, isn't it? It's not like you're going to be taking care of him for years. 1 year at the most. He will pass away soon anyway, so you just have to be patient." My mother-in-law did not stop going out the next day. She even started going out more often than before, and even staying somewhere overnight. My husband had a job too, so I decided to quit my job and devote myself to caring my father-in-law. Although taking care of my father-in-law was a lot of work, it was not hard at all mentally, because I did not dislike my father-in-law, who was very kind to me. But is it okay? I don't know how true it is that my mother-in-law married my father-in-law for his money, but they have spent all this time together. The time he has left is short. Wouldn't she at least try to spend some time with him then? One day, when I was shopping with this thought in mind, my husband had a day off, and he was taking care of my father-in-law.
Thanks for always taking care of my dad. I will take care of him today, so go out and refresh yourself once in a while.
With that being said, I was having tea at a coffee shop after shopping at a nearby shopping mall. Then, I heard a familiar voice from a little distance away. I looked fearfully in the direction and saw my mother-in-law and a young man I have never seen before. I quickly hid behind a wall. I wondered if the reason my mother-in-law had been going out so often was that she was having an affair. While hiding, I listened to the conversation between my mother-in-law and the man. Then, I heard the most unbelievable words. "Soon I will be able to live with you. But are you sure? I may indeed be more beautiful than most of the women in my age, but I'm at least 20 years older than you."
It doesn't matter how old you are. I can only see you. I want you to be with me.
That's very sweet of you to say. You know, my husband is dying soon. I'm going to get a big inheritance, and I'm going to give you a big allowance too. It was such a disgusting conversation. She made fun of her husband, calling him old, and yet she was being cheated out of her own money by someone younger than her. As I was getting angry with my mother-in-law, the two of them stood up. I ducked down further so that my mother-in-law would not find me. Then I saw them leaving the coffee shop, and I decided to follow them out of the shop. Their destination was, as expected, a motel. Her husband is suffering from terminal cancer, and she's with a young man. She called me a bitch or something, but which one of us was it? I wanted to ask her about it, but I need to go home and cook dinner for my husband and father-in-law. Besides, if I got into trouble here, my father-in-law might hear about it. I didn't want to cause more pain to my father-in-law, who was already suffering from an illness. So I decided to capture them entering the motel with my phone camera and to go home. I continued to worry on my way home. If I don't tell my father-in-law about the affair, I might prevent him from being more in pain. But my mother-in-law is obviously counting on my father-in-law's inheritance, and it would end up in the pocket of the person with whom she was having the affair. Can I let this one go so easily? The answer to that question was not going to come in the time it took me to get home. So, while I was caring for my father-in-law, the thought of my mother-in-law's affair kept coming to mind, but I tried to act as normal as possible. However, my father-in-law found out I was out of my mind.
Did something happen?
My father-in-law saw through the hesitation in my heart. I wondered whether I should tell him or not, but I thought that even if I kept quiet, my father-in-law would find out with his sixth sense, so I decided to be honest and tell him what I had seen today. When my father-in-law finished listening to me, he was neither surprised nor angry nor saddened, but simply said, Don't tell me you knew about the affair." When I asked him this, he gave a short reply and started talking about my mother-in-law's affair. According to my father-in-law, this was not the first time she had cheated on him. She had been having relationships with various men and breaking up with them repeatedly for more than 10 years. The reason why my father-in-law knew about it is that he had actually witnessed it and had even investigated it using a professional investigator. However, the evidence of the affair was just an insurance policy, and he had no intention of doing anything with it. My father-in-law had been prepared for some degree of infidelity from the moment his marriage to my mother-in-law, who was 15 years younger than him, was arranged.
No matter how hard I try, I will get older before she does. I knew that one day I will look just like an old man, not a man to my wife. So I overlooked the fact that it was inevitable.
Saying this, my father-in-law fell silent for a while. The next time he opened his mouth, my father-in-law sighed deeply, smiled, and said,
I will take her to hell.
One day, My father-in-law called my mother-in-law to his bedside. At the time, my father-in-law could barely stand up by himself. My mother-in-law came to my father-in-law's side, annoyed, and said, "What do you want?" I handed my mother-in-law an envelope, as my father-in-law had asked me to do. My mother-in-law took it with a wry smile, and when she peeked inside, her face immediately changed to a smile. Inside the envelope was $2,000 in cash.
I have always been indebted to you. You always take care of me. As a small token of my appreciation, I will book you a room at the luxury hotel that took care of me when I was working. I can't go with you anymore, but you can use the money to spend 3 days and 2 nights with a friend or someone.
My mother-in-law's face lit up. Yes, I was a good wife, wasn't I? You are so thoughtful, aren't you? Okay, I will call my friend and go visit there right away. A few days later, my mother-in-law, not caring about my father-in-law, went to that hotel. With a cheating boyfriend, of course. Later, after returning from the hotel, my mother-in-law put in an unusual amount of incoming calls to my father-in-law and me. I ignored the calls because they would interfere with my father-in-law's care, but they were so loud that I had no choice but to answer them. What the hell is going on? What happened to the house? Where did all my stuff go? Hearing those words, my father-in-law and I looked at each other and laughed. The day after he announced that my mother-in-law was going to hell, my father-in-law began to make various arrangements using his old contacts. He acted quickly and efficiently. It must be true that he used to be a shrewd president. He tried his best even in his bad condition, and tried to avoid wasting the time he had left. My father-in-law first asked to investigate my mother-in-law's affair. At the same time, he contacted a lawyer he knew and started to prepare a notarized will. The contents of the will are said to deny inheritance to my mother-in-law, and only my husband and I will inherit. Both the lawyer and the investigation agent came to our house through my father-in-law's connections. Since my mother-in-law was not home for the affair as usual, she did not notice any bold move to some extent. Proof of the affair and the will.
With those 2 things, you probably wouldn't lose if there was an issue over an inheritance dispute even after I'm gone. The adulterer would not get a penny.
Furthermore, my father-in-law proposed that we move into a condominium that he owns.
I'm going to give up this house with my wife. I don't have many good memories here. Besides, I feel bad that my son and his wife have to live in this old house forever.
Yes, my father-in-law went out of his way to get my mother-in-law to go to a hotel to prepare for this move. My husband and I hurriedly packed up while my mother-in-law was gone and moved into the apartment my father-in-law had prepared for us. By the way, I sent my mother-in-law's belongings to the house of her unfaithful partner. I don't know what will happen to my mother-in-law's partner, because I heard from the investigation that her partner is married and he has a wife. My mother-in-law, who got to know all those things, is speaking unspoken words on the other end of the phone. My father-in-law, who couldn't bear to listen to her, took over the phone and said goodbye to my mother-in-law.
I will never see you again in this world. Thank you for everything. See you in hell.
With that, my father-in-law hung up the phone. Later, according to a rumor, my mother-in-law was charged a large amount of alimony by the wife of the unfaithful partner. We thought my mother-in-law was going to fight over the inheritance rights as my father-in-law predicted, but it seems she was too busy with the alimony payment. So in the end, she lost her house and her savings and lost her way. A year later, my father-in-law died. Although he was initially told that he would only live a year at most, he was able to live for 2 years after being told that. And because my mother-in-law was gone, probably he was no longer under stress. I want my father-in-law to live happily in heaven, because my mother-in-law gave him a hard time. and made my mother-in-law continue to live in a living hell forever.
I earn $8,000 a month from working at home, but my mother-in-law wants me to get out.
My son, who is well paid, and you, who has no job and plays around every day, don't match well. From now on, I will live here with my son. So, you get out of here now. It was a rare day when my husband, who usually stays in his room, was out. The intercom rang loudly. When I opened the front door, that was what my mother-in-law said. Huh? In the first place, you should open the front door as soon as the intercom rings. You really are a useless wife who can't do anything. Sorry, I was working and didn't notice. You lied to me like that again. I know. I know that you lie about your job, that you don't do the house chores, that you spend all day long just doing nothing. It's not a lie. It doesn't matter whether you do something or not. My mother-in-law, who doesn't listen to me, smirks and shows me a piece of paper. Do you know what this is? What is it? They are the divorce papers, filled out by my son. He doesn't want you either. Now, sign here and get out of here. My mother-in-law looks down at me triumphantly and laughs. I do as I'm told and sign the divorce papers. My hands trembled as I gripped the pen. My poor mother, so happy with joy. She doesn't know anything about me. My name is Jasmine. I work from home as a freelance writer and editor. Until a few years ago, I worked for a publishing company, and thanks to my experiences from that time, I am still able to earn enough money to live on a steady basis. In addition, when I was working for the publishing company, I worked hard every day, and I had a good amount of savings. Therefore, although I am an unstable freelancer, I am able to live without any major worries. I met my husband Michael when I was working for a publishing company. At the time, I was still a fledgling editor, and Michael was an aspiring writer. I was making a lot of mistakes and things were not going well, but like me, Michael never gave up, even when he couldn't get the result he wanted, and his hard work and dedication to his dream inspired me. I worked hard too, never giving up. So I am the person I am today thanks to Michael. Michael's dedication not only cheered me up, but I found myself attracted to him. A few years after dating Michael, I married him. When I got married, I left the company and became a freelancer. The beginning of our marriage life was going well. I was not yet stable as a freelancer, and Michael was chasing his dream. We encouraged each other and shared half of the house chores and living expenses. After 2 years of marriage, my business began to stabilize. That's when Michael started telling his in-laws that he was a successful writer. In reality, he was not a successful writer at all. Rather, he had been rejected by publishers so many times. Even if he applied for an award, he would only make it to the second round. He probably wanted to reassure his parents. Since I was painfully aware of Michael's feelings, that it would worry them to tell them forever that he wanted to be a writer, I said nothing and nodded along with Michael's story at my in-laws' house. In the beginning, all I had to do was nod. By the time his behavior as a successful author was on the board, I couldn't feel at ease at my in-laws' house. Not only did my in-laws believe Michael's story, that he was a successful writer, but they also started calling me a stay-at-home, useless wife. They saw me as a useless wife who was being supported by her husband, a successful writer. The work at home, freelance work style, may indeed be difficult to understand and imagine. I don't think it was a way of working that my parents-in-law are familiar with, so I don't blame them. However, my parents-in-law's attitude toward me gradually escalated. Whenever I visited my parents-in-law's house, they would always say, "How could a wife who does neither work nor house chores? showed up at her husband's house. As I have told you many times, I am a freelancer, so I work from home. And the sharing of house chores is something that Michael and I discussed when we got married. I don't see how you can talk back to me when you don't even have a job. You say you work at home, but you don't have a good job. You don't make much money, and Michael takes care of you and your living expenses. Don't worry, I make a decent living and pay for our living every month. Oh yes, you don't get it. If you don't appreciate Michael a little more and act a little more gracious, I don't know when he'll leave you. If Michael dumps you, you won't be able to make a living. That kind of conversation continued. I almost sighed out loud, but managed to swallow it. I was about to say, I'm the one who earns most of the living expenses, and I'm also the one who does most of the house chores. It's Michael, who doesn't have a job and doesn't do the housework. But I managed to swallow it as well. In the beginning, I only heard various sarcastic comments when Michael was not around. Recently, when I was invited to dinner at my in-laws' house, Michael and I went to my in-laws' house together, and the only meal prepared was for Michael's portion. It has become the norm that there is no seat for me. On top of that, they seem to be talking about me to all our relatives, and even when I attended gatherings with other relatives a few times a year, they only sneak around and talk about me behind my back. I only pitied my in-laws' attitude. I was not sad at all, but I was a little frustrated with Michael's attitude of just sitting back and watching and not even trying to stop them. On top of that, my in-laws think Michael is a successful writer, so they keep begging him to buy them things. Michael asked me to buy new furniture or appliances, even if ours are still usable. Michael wanted to make a good impression on his parents, so he bought whatever they asked him to buy. And I found myself spending nearly $2,000 a month on them. Of course, this was all from the money I earned. Michael took money from my account and wallet without my knowledge and gave it to my parents-in-law. I turned blind-eyed when it was a small amount, but when it became too much for me to overlook, I said, Michael, please don't spend my money without my permission. But Michael just looked at me as if he was annoyed with me. You work from home and have an easy job, don't you? What? It's like you're playing around and getting your money with it. You earn money from just playing around, so why not spend a little on my mother? Don't be stingy. Michael, did you think of my job that way? Yes, I think it's an easy job because you get paid by staying at home every day. I can't believe you thought that about me, Michael. Michael walks into his room, laughing out loud. As I watched his back, I noticed that this was my limit and that I cannot endure more. I will divorce him. I'd always believed that Michael was the one who was on my side, no matter what my in-laws said. So I managed to do my best. But even Michael was making fun of me like this. And I am aware of everything. I know that Michael spends hours a day in his room, but he never writes a single word of his manuscript and spends his days playing computer games. When I first met him, he was more serious about his work than anyone else, and he was eager to write something as interesting as possible. But now I don't see a trace of that. The dedicated Michael I loved is gone. And now all I have is Michael with his in-laws making fun of me. I decided to secretly look for an apartment for a single person. While looking for a new home, I gradually organized my personal belongings and prepared to leave anytime I wanted to. A little while later, I found an apartment that looked good and had already previewed it. One day, my mother-in-law came to our house while Michael was out. She rang the intercom with great enthusiasm, and as soon as the front door was opened, she sat down on a sofa in the living room, as if it were her own. Jasmine, you get the hell out of this house. What are you saying out of nowhere? I've been telling you for a long time that you were unemployed and still do not do any of the house chores. You are nothing more than a useless wife. There's no way that Michael, a successful writer, is compatible with you.
So, as I have said many times, you were mistaken about that.
Besides, my mother-in-law interrupted me and continued talking. If you leave this house, I will live here. That way, I can cook meals for Michael every day, and I don't have to take care of that woman. That woman? My husband's mother, Michael's grandma. She's so picky about the seasoning when I cook for her, and the dust when I clean. I can't live with her anymore. So I decided to stay here with Michael and have the woman go to a nursing home or somewhere.
How are you going to pay for a nursing home?
I'll just get Michael to pay for a few things like that out of his own money. He is earning a lot of money, so it will be cheap for him. But that's why you are in my way. Will you get the hell out of here?
With that, my mother-in-law presented me with filled out divorce papers. Why do you have that?
I made him fill out a while ago, telling him to get a divorce from Jasmine as soon as possible. Michael immediately nodded and filled it out.
My mother-in-law is smirking and has a nasty smile on her face. I checked the divorce papers and sure enough, they were written in Michael's handwriting. This was actually a good thing for me. I was ready to move out, but I was still thinking about how we were going to get divorced. I thought Michael would not want to give up the life he has now, and he would not sign the divorce papers easily. I was prepared for a long discussion and a battle with him. So how lucky I was to get the divorce papers filled out so easily. My mother-in-law looked a little surprised when I easily received the divorce papers and filled them out. But she soon regained her normal self-possession and said, "Now, get the hell out of here. Leave the furniture behind. Everything gets purchased with Michael's money. So, I don't think you can take anything with you." She laughed out loud. I quickly packed up my belongings and moved into the new apartment. I also filed the divorce papers at the municipal office on my way. Thus, I had a new life on my own without any problems. I was surprised at how comfortable it was to live without anyone interrupting my work and making fun of me. Somehow, I felt that my work was progressing better than usual. It was 3 days after I started living alone. While I was working at home as usual, I received a phone call from Michael. I picked up the phone, and the first thing he said was, "Please come home," he said in the most pathetic voice I have ever heard. What the hell is wrong with you now?
"I'm sorry, I apologize. So please come back home."
I'm not coming home. We have already divorced.
I never agreed to divorce.
That's not valid. But those divorce papers were definitely in your handwriting.
That was just a little threat I was trying to make to you. I had no intention of getting a divorce.
But that doesn't change the fact that you wrote them. Divorce is divorce. You don't need a wife who plays around every day, works on an easy job, and doesn't do any of the house chores, right? You get to live with your family you love so much. You can't complain.
What's the problem? I'm sorry, but my family thinks I'm a writer, so they quit their job and moved here, intending to live on my dime. On top of that, they want me to pay for grandma's surgery, and there's no way I have that kind of money.
I see. That's why you want me to come back.
Yes, and now that they know I've been lying to them. My mom and dad are really mad at me. They're all clamoring for me to bring you back right now. You now know how hard it is for me. Please come back to me. Let's live together again.
Do you really think I'm going to say, "Yes, I'll come back"? I've told you many times, we're divorced. You have to take care of your problems.
Don't be like that, Jasmine.
No matter how many times I say no. Michael won't give up and hang on to me. I don't know how many times I told Michael that I was a stranger to him now, that we were divorced, and he got irritated.
All right. I'll divorce you if you insist so much. But you know what? If you divorce me, you should pay for my parents' care and alimony, which you were supposed to take care of when we were married.
What are you talking nonsense?
Because, if you hadn't divorced me, my mom and dad would have ended up in a facility, and we would have had to pay for their care. So you should be the one to pay for it. And since you divorced me on your own, they found out that I lied about being a successful writer. And my mom and dad got mad at me and hurt me emotionally. All of this is because of your selfish divorce.
I can't pay alimony. No, I won't pay that because I don't understand what you mean. In the first place, when we were married, it was you who said I was a jobless, no good wife. I don't know if it was out of your pride or not, but you were the one who lied about me and hurt me. Your parents and our relatives believed your lie, and they accused me. I don't want to say this, but I was much more hurt than you are hurt now. I'm not interested in you, who willingly made fun of me instead of protecting me. If you want money, why don't you just borrow it from a bank or anywhere else? With those words, I hung up the phone without hearing Michael's reply. I set my phone to block his calls and changed my phone number. A few months later, I happened to pass by my in-laws' house, which had already been sold and turned into a parking lot without a trace of my in-laws' house. While I was looking at my in-laws' house, a neighbor who happened to be coming back from shopping approached me. She told me that Michael's family had no choice but to move into an old apartment because they were all unemployed and had run out of money. Before they got out of there, they had been fighting every day. They were famous in the neighborhood because it was loud enough to be heard outside. They were annoyed by the noise until late every day. The neighbors even called the police. She patted me on the shoulder and said, "You had a tough time too," and hurried off. I also turned my back on my former in-laws. Michael started to lie to look cool, and then he couldn't correct his lie. And the gap between the truth and the lie grew bigger and bigger as he continued lying. I never thought it would end like this, but it's a much more interesting turn of events than the novels Michael writes. It is so common for a small happening to lead to a terrible end. But I wonder if Michael, who wanted to be a writer, couldn't have imagined it. Fact is stranger than fiction. I feel a little sorry for him, that he ruined himself by lying to his parents for his glory and self-satisfaction. But I am going to learn from him so that I don't end up like him.